Hello, and thank you for joining me on the show today. This is the Now Talks, a collection of inspiring personal stories and leadership lessons from some of the world's most iconic leaders. It is the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. My name is Dr. Tina Alton, and I'm your host for today and the coming weeks. So, you've started things before, big things, God sized things, ideas that stirred your spirit, goals that lit you up, an assignment you were sure of, just like myself. But how many times have you actually kept them going? Let's be honest, momentum doesn't vanish in one moment. It leaks slowly, quietly, and if you're not paying attention, the fire then turns into fumes. And when momentum slips, leadership gets heavy, your vision feels distant, your energy starts to wane, and the people you lead stop leaning in. And you wonder, what happened? But when momentum is present, when it's protected, you become unstoppable. Not because you're striving, but because the wind is behind your back. And I want that for you. So today, we're not just talking about how to build momentum, we're diving into how to sustain it. When distractions rise, when fatigue sets in, and where the cost of obedience feels high. So, join me today on a journey where we're going to think about how to start strong, don't stop, and how to build momentum that lasts because it truly is time to build momentum. I'll walk you through 4 key truths that I believe every high impact woman must confront if she wants to lead with lasting momentum. You'll discover why and what feels safe is often what's actually holding you back. You recognize how to reignite your passion when you're running on empty, what to do, as in what to stop doing now, so that you can double down on what's working. So you're going to discover what to do, as in you're going to discover what to stop doing. That's what you're going to do now, so that you can double down on what's working. And the one decision you've been delaying that's actually costing you more than you think. This isn't a theory, it's about motion because your vision doesn't need more time, it just needs traction. And by the end of today's conversation, you won't just feel inspired. I hope you will be clear, you'd find focus, and you'll be ready to move forward again. So now let's build momentum. That's it. Let's keep at it. Idea and thought number 1 is comfort isn't noble, it's a trap. So I'm just going to say this straight. Comfort often feels like, yeah, I got wisdom, I know what to do. But many times it's actually just fear wearing a nice dress. It keeps you doing what's familiar. Both you and I know, right? What's familiar isn't always fruitful. So I want you to ask yourself a question. When have you stayed too long in something that perhaps worked once, but now is just truly just keeping you stuck? What rhythms or routines are you holding on to? Not because it's actually serving your vision, but because they just make you feel safe. If you choose to break the pattern, really, really, truly disrupt it, what new outcome would you unlock? Let's say 6 months from now, or let's say by the time we meet in September at the summit in London. So here's a thought for you. Here's a challenge for you. I want you to identify one area in your leadership where your routine has just become a crutch. And you know when we need a crutch, and when do we need a crutch? When we're not able to stand fully, firm and comfortably and confidently on our feet. We need a crutch to lean on, to offload the weight, of our body to that crutch. So identify one area in your leadership where your routine, very full well has become a crutch. And I want you to disrupt something this week. Change the way you meet, maybe change the way you communicate, and even change the way you plan. Ask someone who's close to you, where am I playing is safe without even realizing it, right? And how you're going to apply this idea or thoughts that I've shared. Review your weekly schedule. Is it actually full of like just noise, or are you actually gaining traction? And you've got to try changing your environment, maybe where you work, where you pray, and where you plan. Read something that challenges your assumptions, something you'd usually choose to skip, right? Idea number two: if you've lost your fire, you can't light anyone else's. Leadership always starts from within. You cannot pour from a dry cup, and you shouldn't even try. It's like you just can't pour from an empty, dry cup. And the number one danger is even attempting or thinking that you can. Can you remember when you last felt fully alive doing what you're doing now? Where have you been going through just the motions, maybe lately, or maybe even just ticking boxes? If your passion was really reignited again today, what difference would would that make in the way you lead tomorrow? Now, I want you to write down your why, and I don't mean the very fancy version. I mean the raw one, the real one, your real why. Write that down. Let that sink in and sit with it. And consider and ponder this is and ask yourself this question: is my life moving towards this vision that I've written down? Is my life, is the choices I'm making, is the decisions I'm making, is the way I'm living my life, is the way I'm leading, moving me towards this vision? Do something this week that brings you joy and brings your energy back. It can be exercise, it might be just taking time out, or it might actually be willing to actually face yourself in the mirror. Something just for you. And eliminate or delegate one thing that has been draining you. And I promise you that would potentially, possibly make the biggest impact for you. Some practical ways to do this is, create some visuals, maybe scriptures, maybe quotes, or maybe goals. Start your mornings by reviewing your why before you actually do any to-do list or to not do list, right? And you've got to commit to learning something new from someone who inspires you every week. If you don't have a mentor, that's a big place you're missing out, because a mentor can make a tremendous difference to you. That becomes a safe space for you to learn something from that person. And a mentor should always usually be somebody that inspires you in one shape or form. And schedule some personal check-ins with yourself, just like you would with, a team member or a client, right? Schedule some check-in time with yourself. Idea number three is, if something's not producing, if something is not yielding any fruit, is something not being productive, just stop pouring. Just stop it. Why am I saying that? Because sometimes, myself included, I've done this before in the past. Thankfully, no more, right? Sometimes you're pouring into maybe a program, maybe a person, or maybe a plant, and nothing is growing. And you just keep doing it out of loyalty, or sometimes even when I've worked with other people, other women, sometimes even out of guilt. Momentum is only usually born in the places where growth already exists. So you got to shift. Ask yourself, where in your life or your leadership are you still investing, even though there's no longer any fruit whatsoever? Where do you see consistent progress, or maybe impact or transformation? What would happen if you had the courage to stop one low yielding thing and actually double down on what is thriving? What is thriving? Pause one project, to pause one commitment, pause one arrangement, pause one plan, pause one program, pause one something, anything that is no longer bearing any fruits, that is no longer being productive, that's no longer actually um, multiplying your time. That's really just no longer just working, period. Identify one high area or high growth area and commit to increasing support or your energy and your time and your efforts towards that. Take time this week to actually audit your energy. What's giving you life and what is draining it? Use some color coded tags: green, yellow, red, on the tasks that you have based on impact. So if something is, not creating any impact and going anywhere, that's a red, that's a stop right there. And then, consider what's going to be yellow and what's going to be green. Set weekly goals based only on what's currently producing results. Block off at least minimum 30 minutes weekly to analyze your ROI. And that can be relational ROI, can be a spiritual ROI, or it can be a business related ROI. And if you have a team, consider this, maybe invite your team to also evaluate what's really worth our time together as a team. And finally, the key idea, number 4, is avoidance is the silent assassin of your vision. You already know what needs to be done, but you've delayed it. Truth is, we all have. So what have you been postponing that's actually costing you more than you realize? Why haven't you acted? And be honest, what are you afraid of? If you faced this head on, what would become possible in your leadership and life and business? I've had a friend that was mentoring, and it's just so sad because she has so much potential, but I mean, I have no idea. It's just the comfort of doing the same thing means that, she's just kept silent, just alienated herself, just disappeared, right? Just disappeared. Doesn't reporting anymore, doesn't checking anymore. Meanwhile, they just stuck in a vicious cycle of just being, in this wheel that's just spinning but going nowhere. Here's a challenge. Write down the hard thing you have been avoiding and name it plainly. Give it a name. Give it a name. And that I promise you, when you do this exercise, you're going to move something, you're going to shift something out of your way. Something that has been blocking you, keeping you stuck, will be moved. Write down the hard thing you have been avoiding. Name it plainly. Set a deadline, but not next month, not next year, not next quarter, this week, tomorrow, today. And find someone you trust and tell them, you know what, I'm going to do this, and I want you to hold me accountable to it. And here's how you're going to make it happen. Write a values-based script to actually help you prepare for that hard conversation that you've been avoiding. Schedule a weekly decision hour to knock out delayed decisions. A weekly decision hour to knock out delayed decisions, because at some point as a leader, you're going to have to, not at some point, but every single, day in, week out, month in, that you are a leader, you're going to be faced with decisions. And some decisions are a lot harder than the others. So there's nothing wrong with scheduling a decision hour. And that's how you sit down, you knock out, how am I going to deal with this decision? Because the longer you delay, the more it's actually hurting you and actually impacting your leadership. And also maybe reflect on a past moment when you face something really hard and just think back. Just remember how God carried you through, because he's good and he helps us. And often, we can easily take for granted the times and the situations in which God really truly came through for us and carried us. So it's a really good practice. Once a week, minimum once a month, sit down and just reflect, all the different things that have happened, transpired. It doesn't have to be the big, the medium, the small, and just remember and just savor how God carried you through. And the final thing is, you don't actually have to do it alone. You don't have to face any of these things alone. You can always ask for prayer, you can ask for counsel or backup wherever it's needed. So, in summary, here's what we've all walked through together. The fact that comfort is not your friend, you have to disrupt it. Passion is your fuel, and you have to reignite it. Productivity reveals priority. So you've got to shift your energy where growth lives. Hard choices will actually clear the path, so you got to do them now. So here's your next step. Take a deep breath. Now sit with this truth. Just pick just one action point and act on it this week. Share this. I want you to share this episode with any woman you know who's ready to lead with fire in their belly again. And again, I want to invite you to our annual International Women's Leadership Summit happening in London, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th of September. We're going to round up with an amazing, incredible afternoon gathering at the UK House of Lords for our global influential women. These are decision makers, government, ministers, you name it. They are impacting and making tremendous difference in the world. And remember, these connections don't happen over Zoom. You've got to be in the room. You need to be in the room. So I want to invite you to go to nationsofwomen.com, click on the button that says apply for an invitation to the summit, send us your application, and who knows, you may well receive an invitation to be in the room. But until then, until September comes, you have June, July, August. You have 3 whole months in between where you can still make a difference by building momentum. You were born to lead boldly, not in burnout, not in circles, but forward. And you don't have to do it alone. It's time to build momentum. So let's build momentum together. Until I come your way again next week, remember, it's your time to build momentum. And that's all for this week. You've been listening to Dr. Tina Alton with the Now Talks, the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. All that remains is for me to say have a fantastic week, stay safe, and reach out if you need any help now at nationsofwomen.com. Until next time, enjoy the pursuit of your potential, and remember, now is your time.